Have you ever wondered how the Constituent Assembly of India was actually formed? Was it directly elected by the people of India, like we elect members of Parliament today? Welcome to PS Choudhary. Before we begin today's topic, let us quickly recall what we studied in the previous lecture. In the previous video, we discussed the demand for a Constituent Assembly. We learned that the idea was first proposed by M. N. Roy in 1934. Later, the Indian National Congress officially demanded a Constituent Assembly in 1935. Jawaharlal Nehru strongly supported the idea in 1938 and insisted that the constitution should be framed by Indians themselves. We also saw how the British gradually responded to this demand through the August Offer of 1940 and the Cripps Mission of 1942. But both proposals were rejected. Finally, the Cabinet Mission Plan of 1946 accepted the demand and provided the framework for creating the Constituent Assembly. Now the next important question is this. How was the Constituent Assembly actually formed, and how did it function? Let us understand this step by step. First, it is important to remember that the Constituent Assembly was not elected directly by the people. You might wonder why. The reason is simple. In 1946, India did not yet have a system of elections based on universal adult franchise. Conducting nationwide direct elections was not practically possible at that time. So instead, an indirect method of election was used. Here is how it worked. First, the people elected the provincial legislative assemblies. Then the members of those provincial assemblies elected the members of the Constituent Assembly. So you can think of it like a two-step process. People elected provincial assemblies, and those assemblies elected the Constituent Assembly members. At that time, this was considered the most practical option. Now let us understand the composition of the Constituent Assembly. The framework for the Assembly was provided by the Cabinet Mission Plan of 1946. The Cabinet Mission itself had 3 members: Pethick Lawrence, Stafford Cripps, and A. V. Alexander. Under the Cabinet Mission Plan, the total number of seats allocated to the Constituent Assembly was 389. Out of these, 292 seats were allotted to the British Indian provinces. 93 seats were allocated to the princely states. And 4 seats were given to the Chief Commissioner's provinces. However, this was the situation before partition. After the partition of India in 1947, the total strength of the Assembly was reduced to 299 members. This happened because the areas that became Pakistan formed their own Constituent Assembly. Another important point is the basis of representation. Seats were roughly allocated according to population. On average, 1 seat was assigned for about 10 lakh people. Now let us move to some important working details of the Constituent Assembly. The first meeting of the Constituent Assembly was held on the 9th of December, 1946. In this first meeting, the oldest member of the Assembly, Dr. Sakhidananda Sinha, was appointed as the temporary or provisional chairman. This was a convention borrowed from France, where the oldest member presides over the first meeting. A few days later, on the 11th of December, 1946, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the permanent president of the Constituent Assembly. Remember this clearly. Temporary chairman was Dr. Sakhidananda Sinha. Permanent president was Dr. Rajendra Prasad. This distinction is often tested in UPSC examinations. The Assembly also had 2 vice presidents, H. C. Mukherjee and V. T. Krishnamacharya. Another very important person associated with the Constituent Assembly was Sir Benegal Narsingh Rao, commonly known as B.N. Rao. He served as the constitutional advisor to the Assembly. His role was extremely significant because he prepared the initial draft and background notes that helped the drafting process. However, remember this carefully. B.N. Rao was not a member of the drafting committee. The drafting committee was later formed separately with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar as its chairman. Now let us understand how long the Constituent Assembly worked. The Assembly held a total of 11 sessions. During these sessions, it conducted 165 sittings. Out of these, 114 sittings were specifically devoted to discussing and drafting the Constitution. The entire process took 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days. The total expenditure of this constitution-making process was approximately 63.96 lakh rupees, which is usually rounded off to about 64 lakh rupees. Now let us come to two very important dates. The Constitution of India was adopted on the 26th of November, 1949. This date is now celebrated as Constitution Day, also known as Samvidhan Diwas. However, the Constitution did not come into force on the same day. It came into force on the 26th of January, 1950. This is the date we celebrate as Republic Day. You might wonder why the date 26th January was chosen. The reason is historical. On the 26th of January, 1930, the Indian National Congress had declared the goal of Purna Swaraj, meaning complete independence. So the same date was chosen to honor that historic declaration. Now another interesting point. When the Constitution came into force in 1950, it originally contained 395 articles, 8 schedules, and 22 parts. Over time, many amendments have been made. Today the Constitution contains 448 articles, 12 schedules, and 25 parts. Another fascinating aspect of the Constitution is the artistic work behind the original document. The original English version of the Constitution was beautifully handwritten in calligraphy by Prem Bihari Narain Raisda. The Hindi version was written by Vasant Krishan Vaidya. The decorative artwork in the Constitution was done by Nandalal Bose of Shantiniketan, who illustrated important scenes from Indian history. Now one more political aspect you should know. The Muslim League initially boycotted the early meetings of the Constituent Assembly because of disagreements over the political future of India. Later, after partition, Pakistan formed its own separate Constituent Assembly. Now remember a very important distinction that UPSC often tests. The Constitution was adopted on 26 November 1949. But it came into force on 26 January 1950. Do not confuse these two dates. Also remember that B.N. Rao was the constitutional advisor, not a member of the drafting committee. And remember the difference between the temporary chairman and the permanent president. Temporary chairman was Sakhidananda Sinha, while the permanent president of the Constituent Assembly was Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Now let us quickly revise the key ideas. First, the Constituent Assembly was formed under the Cabinet Mission Plan of 1946 and its members were elected indirectly by the provincial legislative assemblies. Second, the Assembly originally had 389 members, which later reduced to 299 after partition. Third, the Assembly worked for 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days, holding 11 sessions and 165 sittings to draft the Constitution. And finally, the Constitution was adopted on 26 November 1949, but it came into force on 26 January 1950. In the next lecture, we will move forward and understand the Objectives Resolution of 1946, which laid down the philosophical foundation of the Indian Constitution.